Hello, my beautiful buds. Welcome back to my channel, Sprouts with Joy. My name is Joy, and if you like to talk about plants, you're in the right place. I'm finally filming a video that has been on my list to film for quite a long time, but I'm just now finally getting around to it, and that is my anthurium collection. I really love creating genus-specific collection videos because it gives me the opportunity to look back on a specific subset of my plants, and I don't know, it's satisfying to see it change and grow, and those individual plants change over time as well. I know that I have a lot to learn when it comes to anthurium. I'm relatively new to collecting them. Only this year, 2023, did I really start getting more into them. Like, I got my first anthurium back in 2022, I believe, but I think I got a total of 2 anthurium that year, but then I got the remaining 7 anthurium that I own this past year in 2023. And again, yeah, I still have a lot to learn, a lot to go in terms of mastering their care, but I've really enjoyed this genus a lot, and it's starting to get really up there in terms of my favorite genera to take care of. So yes, I'm gonna try to talk about these roughly in chronological order, but yeah, let's just kind of jump into it. Okay, unless you count the anthurium andranum, which I got rid of a really long time ago. It's like the flamingo anthurium, like the one in all the grocery stores. The one that people think of when they think of anthurium, that, you know, they're familiar with plants kind of, but they aren't really plant people. Like the kind of anthurium that my mom would always talk about. Yeah, I'm not a fan of those, but I did have one of those for like a year when, like, before I even really started collecting plants. So I guess that was technically my first anthurium, but I got rid of it a long time ago, so I don't even really consider it part of my collection, but I guess that's technically my first anthurium. Anyways, I digress. I'd say this is my first true anthurium, my first anthurium that I got when I started collecting houseplants. This is an anthurium clarinervium, and I got it in Chicago back in 2022. February. I took like a little trip. I actually got to meet Becca and Nicole from like the Potted Together podcast and their respective plant tea YouTube channels. That was such a fun trip. And as I was shopping for plants and stuff, I came across an anthurium clarinervium, and it was my first time seeing them in person, and it had been like at the top of my wish list for a really long time. I was incredibly nervous to buy this plant, to have this plant, to own this plant, just because I had never really cared for like a velvet-leaved anthurium before, and in my mind they were really, really challenging and tricky. I think at the time people were like just kind of getting more and more into anthurium, and some people were like the anthurium masters that were like really good at taking care of them. There was definitely a sense that in order to keep anthurium, you had to have an IKEA greenhouse cabinet or like a really high humid situation in order to keep them. Like, that was a very popular thought within the plant community, and I think that we still generally feel that way about a lot of anthurium. A lot of us plant collectors still gravitate towards putting our anthurium in greenhouse cabinets. But I think that I've observed more and more people trying to grow their anthurium in ambient humidity, or at least like 50% humidity, which I think is awesome, because I think that a lot of them really are capable of it. Now, are there really finicky anthurium? Yes. But also, are there like some really finicky philodendron? Yes. I think that a lot of us just kind of automatically put all anthurium into that box of really finicky and tricky plants to take care of, when in reality, once you get a sense for like what they like, they might actually be more straightforward to take care of than a lot of philodendron, especially when you like take moss poles into account and that sort of thing. But anyways, I digress. At the time, I was very nervous about anthurium clarinervium, even though people always were like,
hey, if you're gonna get a velvet-leaved anthurium, like, this is the one to get. This is the easiest one.
You may notice that it only has 2 leaves, which that is the case. It is currently rooting in sphagnum moss because I had to completely reroot it. It had either dry rot, I don't know if it was from overwatering or underwatering, probably underwatering, because shortly after I got this plant, I got pregnant with my son, and my body does not handle pregnancy very well. I was very, very, very sick. Yeah, I just could not give this plant the attention that it needed. And at the time, I also did not have an IKEA greenhouse cabinet. So just over the course of that entire year, like, it really suffered a lot for like pretty much the duration of my pregnancy. I feel like I was not caring for this plant as intentionally as I needed to. And again, I was still really new to anthurium, so I didn't have that base of knowledge. I was kind of like working from scratch. So I just kind of treated it like all of my other plants, and it was like in the same potting mix for way too long, and it was like not that great. So yeah, it definitely was not the best situation ever. But now I think that we're turning a corner. It's rerooting. There's a new growth point down here. I don't know how well you can see that, but there is a new growth point down here. And I am really, really excited for this plant to grow and mature and be like the gorgeous anthurium clarinervium that I know and love and like see in other people's collections. But yeah, it's probably gonna be a bit of a long journey because I kind of had to start with scratch with this one. The next anthurium that I got, I don't know, I feel like it was nearly a year after I purchased my anthurium clarinervium. I think I got this towards the end of 2022. That sounds about right. But this one is doing actually a lot better than the anthurium clarinervium. I had this one in ambient humidity for several months until I got my IKEA greenhouse cabinet. And then once I did, I transferred this to the cabinet, and like it was doing okay in an ambient humidity, but it truly started to explode with growth once I put it in the greenhouse cabinet. So it is growing like a little bit crazy and every which way because of like the lights and everything. So maybe I need to figure out a way to make it more compact, but it has been growing so well for me. Look at this like new leaf that's still hardening off. Just look at the coloration of that. Is that not so beautiful? And the shape and the venation, I really love this plant. I thought that I would love the clarinervium more than I love the crystallinum, but honestly, like, I kind of really like the crystallinum, you guys. It's just so beautiful, and it's such a vigorous grower. Like the clarinervium, again, I kind of had my negative experiences with it, which were my fault. And this one probably had more of a fighting chance, but I do feel like this one might be just slightly more robust or slightly more of a vigorous grower. I don't know, you'll have to let me know what your experience has been with this plant, but honestly, like it has so many new growth points all the time. I feel like it's always putting off new leaves, and the leaves are kind of sizing up a little bit too. Not like super dramatically, but I know that this plant has huge potential to size up its leaves. I've really, really enjoyed growing this one, but I will continue. I think I need to add more moss to this to continue kind of encouraging the roots to grow down into the soil. Yeah, this one is definitely a classic, and like the anthurium clarinervium, the crystallinum is also getting really, really accessible. Because both of those plants, I mean, they used to be pretty pricey, like less pricey than some of the crazy anthurium out there, but now they're definitely like more accessible. Like I've seen them for like 20 bucks a pop. A lot more affordable than what they've ever used to be, I feel like. So yeah, right now is a great time to get the clarinervium, to get the crystallinum, although there are a lot of anthurium out there that are still very expensive. I need to check and see when I got this plant. Okay, I found it. The video that I unboxed this plant was May 26th. So that was like around 5 or 6 months ago now, which is crazy because I feel like I've had this plant for longer, but I guess that makes sense because I got my IKEA greenhouse cabinet in April this past year. I finally felt more comfortable to start like acquiring more anthurium in my collection. So I went ahead and ordered a little seedling from Green Hues. And this is specifically an anthurium Doriaki crystallinum cross, which was then crossed with an anthurium luxurians. So you can see it kind of has the dimpling of the luxurians. And look at this new leaf. Oh my gosh, is that not just so adorable? But yeah, this is still obviously like a fairly immature plant. I got it as a tiny seedling. It was just absolutely itty bitty. And over the course of 5 months, it has grown to this amount. I have repotted it once, or rather I potted it out of sphagnum moss into this clear pot, which I honestly really love growing anthurium in clear pots like this. I know a lot of people do, and I think it's specifically due to the fact that they particularly like to be watered on time. They don't like to dry out too much, and it's just a lot easier to tell where they're at in terms of watering. It's easier to care for them with a clear vessel or clear pot, so I really have been loving that. There is one leaf that kind of tore. I don't know exactly why that was. Maybe it just didn't have high enough humidity at that point. Then this is the most recent leaf that it gave me. and has sized up considerably, and now there's this leaf that's coming out. And I'm really excited to see what this looks like, you guys. It definitely has the more round presentation to the leaf, like the Doriaki, and it has the dimpling of the luxurians. I don't really know how much crystallinum I really see in it yet, but who knows? Honestly, with seedlings, like, you never really know what they're going to turn out looking like. But yeah, this seedling has been really nice. It's a robust hybrid. And I've heard a lot that anthurium hybrids they can withstand a lot more. They can be a lot tougher sometimes than either of their parents. I'm always kind of on the lookout to get anthurium hybrids, anthurium seedlings from people that cross plants in their own collection. I just think that is a really cool thing, that you can have pieces of like another person's collection in a sense. Does that make sense? And they're all going to be completely unique, because even if you cross 2 anthurium species like 2 times in a row, like the seedlings don't come out the same. It's genetics. It's kind of like how, you know, your parents have you and then your parents have your sibling, and you both got pieces of the DNA, but like you're not completely identical. You have similarities, but you're not identical. And so I'm just so stoked to see and like figure out what kinds of characteristics are gonna emerge in this plant in the long run. It's a mystery and it's fun. The next anthurium that I think I got these 2 in the same month actually, like in May. So I think I got this one on my birthday. This is an anthurium podophyllum. This was the first more kind of different anthurium that I got. Leaf shape is clearly very different from any anthurium in my collection. This has been a little bit of a slower growing anthurium for me. I think it's actually only, well, it gave me a leaf, but then my cats knocked that leaf off as it was emerging. So then it gave me this leaf after that. Technically it's given me 2 leaves, but only like 1 has remained because of that unfortunate accident. But I just think that this plant is so unique, so fun. I have been growing it in ambient humidity, so that could also be contributing to the fact that it's like not growing super quickly, but it seems to have like no real issues, at least cosmetically. With being grown in ambient humidity, and the leaves are more matte. Like they're not glossy, they're not velvety, they're very matte, which makes me believe that it's probably okay with the ambient humidity. Again, I haven't really had any issues with it. It's in a very chunky mix, of course, in a clear pot. And I think that this plant has been honestly just so interesting to grow. I mean, I think that I would have more fun with it maybe if it grew a little bit faster, but at the same time, there's room to appreciate plants that are a little bit slower, because at this point I have so many plants in my collection that if they all were to grow really quickly, it would take up too much space. It would be too overwhelming to have to be propagating them all the time and all that mess. Like it would just be too much. So I think I do actually appreciate that this one's a little bit of a slower grower. It's very straightforward to grow, and yeah, it's just very unique. I don't have very many plants in my collection that have super unique leaves like this. Like most of them are fairly classic, straightforward looking leaves. So I definitely appreciate this one a lot. Okay, the next 2 plants I got in a single order. I actually may have gotten these before the anthurium podophyllum, because I like got all of these at the same time, like in the same month. But I got them in the same order from Carnivoro. I'll start with this one. This is an anthurium dark forgetii, or forgetii dark form. And this one is just so cool. Look at this newest leaf. Is that not just delicious? It's gorgeous. It's perfect. This one has grown really well for me. I almost massacred it when I was trying to repot it. If you want to watch that, it's in this video. But it bounced back really well, and that tells me that this is a super robust plant, even though like its roots were totally messed with. And that's one thing I actually really love about anthurium, is that their roots are so chunky. And not that you want to like mess with them a ton. That's probably a no-no with most anthurium, but with this one, it really withstood that a lot. I would love to get this a better cash po, because this is just like a plastic situation, which like it's fine. I don't mind it too much because it is a terracotta color, but I definitely prefer cash pos or clear vessels for displaying my plants rather than just having straight up plastic. I put most of my plants in terracotta. I really like terracotta, but not for anthurium. If you notice, I just think that they don't like drying out that quickly, and terracotta is just so porous that it can just totally like leach all the moisture out, which is great if you tend to be an overwaterer, but if you don't have the time to be watering like every 3 days, maybe don't pot your anthurium up in terracotta. I don't know, that's just my personal preference. Anyway, basically this was like the only non-terracotta pot that I had that would fit the plant at the time. But eventually I'd love to either get like a little basket for it or a cash po or something just more aesthetically pleasing. But it does have a new leaf coming in already, like this little growth point right here. And this type of growth does tell me that this is, wait, does it have 2? Oh, it might also have an inflow because it looks like it has 2 growth points, but one of them is coming off of the petiole and one of them is coming from like the main stem. But usually if they're coming off of the main stem, I think that means that they're like pretty mature. But yeah, coming off of the petiole, or maybe it's the other way around. That looks like an inflow. That's another thing. This plant puts off lots of inflorescences, like it's had 3, I think. I'm not ready to pollinate or like create more anthurium seedlings and stuff like that, just because at least with this one, I don't feel like it's mature enough to handle it. Like it's getting there, it's definitely getting there, but I want to get a few more big mature leaves out of it and have it for a little bit longer before I start pollinating it. But it is definitely anxious to be pollinated, my goodness. But it just takes so much energy out of the plant to produce seeds. Yeah, but it's a gorgeous plant. Oh my word. I love it. Okay, and then this one is another one that I got from Carnivoro, like at the same time in the same order as the dark forgetii. This is the anthurium dark crystallinum crossed with anthurium papillaminum. And this one very well might be my favorite anthurium. Potentially, I'm like looking at all of them. I don't know for sure, but I like, look at this newest leaf. Oh my goodness. The leaf shape is stunning. And it's so velvety and gorgeous. It has, I don't know if you can really see it on camera, but it does have a really pretty sheen to it. Oh, it has like a more bluish tint to the leaves. They're very dark as well. And even just the leaf shape, it's so gorgeous. I love it. And I personally adore anthurium papillaminum. Like that is one of my like top wish list anthurium if I were to get like just any sort of anthurium that I would want. But honestly, like this one really is giving, like it has strong papillaminum genes, I think, just kind of based on the leaf shape even and like the tone of the leaf. So I might even just be content with this one, to be honest. The more that it matures and the more that it's growing, I'm really loving it. And so far, now it is of course growing in my greenhouse cabinet like the vast majority of these plants. So far it has grown really well for me. It's rooting really nicely in this pot. And yeah, like I really don't have like I haven't had any major issues with it at all. So yeah, it's just gorgeous and I just love it. And maybe it's a little bit boring because like I haven't had a huge journey with this plant yet. I don't know, like with some of the older plants, there's a little bit more of a journey involved. But with this one, I just got it back in May, several months ago, and it's put out like 2 or 3 leaves for me. They're just getting better and better. It's kind of the story. I haven't had any pests. I actually don't think I've had any pests on any of my anthurium. That's another really cool thing that I'm like, wow, that's kind of nice. I'm dreading the day if I do wind up with pests on them, but I just haven't. It's been pretty straightforward. I just try to not let it dry out too much. I will say I do, one of my goals for this upcoming year is to really lock in on mastering my anthurium care and really figuring out like how to fertilize them, what potting mix to put them in. I want to test out no drainage, which I'm going to talk about in a second, and just different ways of growing them, test out ambient humidity as opposed to all of them being crammed into my IKEA greenhouse cabinet. That's definitely something I'll be exploring a lot in 2024, which now that I said 2024, my brain just broke a little bit. This is an anthurium vittariifolium that I got from Florida. And I mean, this is actually one that I am not growing in the IKEA greenhouse cabinet. I'm growing this one in ambient humidity. This is another anthurium, kind of like the podophyllum, that has more of a matte finish as opposed to like the more velvety finishes or even glossy finishes. Like this is very matte, a little bit more satin, but not velvety. And it's given me a couple of leaves, maybe 3. I think this leaf was the first leaf. It tore. I was like, ugh, maybe I should put it in the cabinet. And then it gave me this leaf, I think. And then this leaf, which it has a rip in it, but that was my fault. But yeah, it's growing pretty well, and I think it has a new leaf or at least it's already starting like a new growth point. So yeah, it looks slightly beat up, I will say, and that's largely because it got a bit beat up on the way here. I got this in Florida and I had it with me in a little bag that I took on the airplane. And I mean, I was chasing around 2 kids at the airport with my husband, and there were a lot of moving pieces, and yeah, I think at least one of the leaves snapped off. And I mean, this one is like snapped in half too. So this plant has a lot of mechanical damage, but I don't really see that as being the plant's fault per se. It just kind of went through it. But in spite of that, I feel like it's continued to grow pretty well. It's definitely not in the location where I want it to be long term. I would love to have it hanging and trailing really beautifully. But yeah, this is my one and only pendant leaf anthurium. It's kind of like my representative one, I guess. So I'm excited to grow it. I don't know. I think I always wanted to try the podophyllum instead of the vittariifolium, but this was just, I got a really good deal on it when I was in Florida. I had never seen one for such a low price. I think it was like $20 or less, maybe even $15, something like that. And so I decided to go ahead and get it. But yeah, I don't know, maybe I would get a podophyllum someday. That's the more velvety one. It has different lobes as well. But I'm gonna grow out the vittariifolium, see how it goes, see how much I like it as it matures before I'm deciding like if I want to pursue a different kind of pendant leafed anthurium. But as it is for now, I think it's a cute one, and I'm just excited for it to continue growing. Hi, okay, I'm butting in because I forgot a plant. So I in fact actually have 10 anthurium, not just 9 anthurium to share with you guys. And I forgot about this one. Okay, and I just knew I was forgetting something, but like, I was so exhausted I could not come up with what I was forgetting. Hi. I could not come up with what I was forgetting. Yeah, I forgot my anthurium vittariifolium because it lives in a prop box right now, and it just, you know, it's out of sight, out of mind. I haven't completely acclimated it or really brought it into my collection spaces, if that makes sense. I've been keeping it in the prop box so that it can, in a sense, be rehabbed, because I have a friend that just sent it to me. She contacted me and she was like, hey, I've got an anthurium vittariifolium and I don't want it anymore. It's gonna be a rehab plant. It's in rough shape, but like, you're welcome to it if you want it. And so yeah, I just paid for shipping. She sent it to me and I've been rehabbing it in the last few months. And I mean, again, yeah, it's looking rather rough because it is a rehab plant. So it came to me with a lot of crispy edges and that sort of thing, which I trimmed away, and it's living in my prop box. And it does have a new growth point. Let me see if I can put this guy down. Will you let me put you down, please? It does have a new growth point that it's been trying to put out for quite a while now. So yeah, it's still on its way to growing and recovering. We're figuring each other out. I haven't really done much to it other than put it in a prop box and just keep it in super high humidity. So yeah, that's my anthurium vittariifolium. And you know, it's a pretty plant. I've been wanting one for quite a while. It was one of the first anthurium I was looking at when I was looking at like kind of which anthurium to buy, and I was browsing things. And so I was familiar with the species and I was interested in it already. So yeah. Oh, and here's our Christmas tree, by the way. The lighting sucked anyways. It's like 4:30 and the sun's already setting. But yeah, so that's the anthurium that I forgot. Anthurium vittariifolium. Let's move on to the next one. Okay, this one I got just like 2 months ago maybe, and it's the anthurium magnificum. And it did just recently put out this leaf. It's still kind of growing a little bit, hardening off. And this one is just like, I feel like some people regard it as more of a boring anthurium. Like, it's very straightforward. Like, it's probably like the most, I mean, it's velvet leaved. It doesn't have anything super special in terms of characteristics. It looks a lot like a lot of other anthurium. Like it resembles the crystallinum, but the crystallinum has leaves that are shaped like in a little bit more of a unique way, and it has more unique venation. So I don't know, they are very similar, but I still definitely like it. I still think it's really, really pretty. And again, I got a really good deal on it. And I feel like this is a really good plant to hybridize other plants with. Like I've heard of like a lot of different magnificum hybrids, so I'm excited to experiment with that with this one someday. Like, I get the impression that it would be a very stable parent. I don't know if that has any weight to it, but it does have a new leaf kind of already on the way. It's very, very minute. so you probably can't see it, but it is still in that growth pattern where it comes straight off the petiole as opposed to straight from the stem. Like I think from the stem is cataphyll growth or something like that. I haven't had this one for very long, but given the fact that it's already produced a new leaf and has a new one on the way, it's growing really well. I mean, I haven't even repotted this one, and actually speaking of repotting, I want to try this in no drainage in a clear vessel. Hang on. I just thrifted several clear vessels for like $1 a piece. Honestly, like they're really not that expensive if you get them from a thrift store, and the thrift store tends to have a lot of stuff like this. And yeah, I just think it'll be perfect to test out no drainage. I'll probably use Charmaine's method on Plant Parenthood. She's another YouTube channel. I'm sure you've heard of her, but if you haven't, please check her out. She has a lot of really in-depth, interesting information in terms of how she cares for her houseplants, and I learn a lot from her all the time, especially about anthurium. She usually puts like leca or pon at the bottom, like a layer of that, and then the substrate. So I don't know. I think I want to try no drainage, and I'm gonna test it out first with my anthurium magnificum, partially because it's like small enough that it would fit into the vessels that I got, but also because I feel like it's a little bit lower risk because this seems like a fairly robust plant. This one definitely needs to be repotted. It's in like straight peat moss, so definitely needs that. Yeah, I don't know. I want to try it out. Let me know if you've tried it. I see more and more, like the people that are like anthurium people that I know and that I follow tend to grow their anthurium in no drainage. That's their default for anthurium, so I want to try it out. Because why not? I already love growing them in clear pots, so why not just go all the way, you know? I'm very, very open to that idea. I know some people freak out over no drainage, but I'm particularly open to no drainage for my anthurium and for my alocasias. I feel like that might be the way to go with those genera. We'll have to see. All right, we're down to the last one, and this is actually a very tiny seedling that I just got, again, like last month, basically. Look at how tiny that is. It is just an itty-bitty seedling. This is my anthurium dock block hybrid, or at least I ordered it off of Etsy. Classified as such. I did not get this directly from the dock block himself. The seller claimed that this was crossed between two of their own dock blocks in their collection. And for a while I was like, is this even a dock block? I don't know. Just because it's a seedling, it's hard to tell. And I had a moment of like, ugh, since they didn't tell me anything about the generation or like is it a Zara or a Michelle or any of those things. I don't know much about this plant. It also doesn't have like the red emergent leaves, which I don't like, because that's pretty characteristic of most dock blocks that I know of. I'm gonna give it a chance, and I'm hoping that it'll grow to be a really, really beautiful plant kind of regardless. We'll have to see. It is exciting to see a seedling, watch it grow, that sort of thing. And this one was like $20. So yeah, it's 20 bucks, but it's also 20 bucks, you know, like it's kind of expensive, but it's not like I spent like $50 or $60 on it. So whatever it grows up to be, I will feel, I think, at least relatively happy with it. At least, I mean, it is an anthurium at the very least. So, yep. Well, those are all 9 of the anthurium that are currently in my collection. I know it's like a relatively humble anthurium collection, but it's growing. It's a solid set, I think, in this genus, and I love each and every one of them, honestly. I hope that you enjoyed this video, and if you did, please feel free to leave a like, comment, subscribe, or even buy me a coffee if you want to. The link is in the description below, and that just helps me to keep on producing content like this. So thank you so much for watching, and I hope that you have a wonderful and blessed day. Bye-bye!